So what's up? How we doing today? We're going to focus on how we can make our soloing on Sugaree even sweeter by focusing in not on scales, but on the chord tones. So we're going to break it down. The only thing we need to know to get started here is that the solo section is on B to E, and we're in a B Mixolydian key or scale mode, however you want to call it, which so many dead songs are. And if you don't know what that is, don't worry about it, because we're not going to even focus on that. We're going to focus in on the chord tones. So I'm going to play through an example right now, focusing in on one chord tone for each chord. And I want you to see if you can figure out what it is, but most importantly, just listen to the sound and just notice how it sounds and how it makes you feel when you hear it. And then we'll break down what is going on. So this one I started off as simple as we could. We're just playing roots. So we're just going to focus on this section right here in the guitar. And we're just playing B for B, right? E for E. And then I just mix up the octaves a couple times. So B down here and here. So when I'm playing the chord, I'm not always just hitting it right away, but I'm focusing on that note, on that root for each one. That root is that foundation of the chord, right? Also they call it the one, the root, do. So something like, some little fill leading into it, some pickup notes. And so you can kind of hear the progression, what I'm doing there, even though I'm not playing any chords, nobody else is, right? So the goal here is if you can do this on your own and hear the chords, and if somebody else can hear it too, and be like, yes, an outside ear, I can hear that song, I can hear that chord progression. That's what we want to go for, and that's going to make you connected to the tune and the chord progression so much more. It's going to make your playing much more melodic and getting away from just playing a scale kind of on top of things. So while the root's kind of the easiest, the most obvious, and way to really connect everything to it, it's not the most exciting. So let's explore a different chord tone. Same thing, I'm going to play around just with the backing track as a little example and see if you can just notice which one it is, but just notice that feeling, because each one has a different kind of color to it, a different sound and a feeling and emotion. So let's give it a listen and we'll see what is going on. So this one is the fifth. So rather than going to the third, if you know your chord tones, you've got your root, third, and fifth for a basic chord, and these are just both basic major chords, B and E. We have F sharp, which is the fifth of B, and then we have B, which is actually the fifth of E. So if you focus on B a lot, it actually works pretty well between these two chords. You want to keep it as easy as possible. Just no matter what you do, just focus on that B, and you'll be connected between the two chords. But if you kept doing that forever, it would get a little boring, right? So we want to know the other chord tones as well. So you got that F sharp, again, which is the fifth of B, and this one here. So again, octaves here and here. So if I'm messing around, right? So we can still make it sound like it's the progression. It gets a little more challenging because it's now getting away from those roots, and it's a little easier now if you're playing along with other people, playing along with the back track. But when you're playing on your own, it starts to get a little dicier because you're getting away from that root. But the closest one to the root is the fifth. It's the most similar. It's kind of cutting it right in between from the root to the octave, and it has a little more tension. So notice, when you're playing a B, Now with the fifth, there's a little bit more tension. So it's a little more colorful, a little more interesting. So let's look at now the third and see how that sounds. So the third has got the most tension out of these three, and the most kind of color and emotion I think that adds to it. It really kind of some tension. It pushes things forward, and it really gives you a lot of information because it tells you what quality the chord is. In this case, they're both major. So with the B, we have right here D sharp, and with the E, we have a G sharp. So if we're going along, sorry, if you're kind of like getting ready to that B, and we can play different spots right here, and then the G sharp, and then I think maybe I got one all the way up here, and you can think, well, they're all over the place. We don't need to know them everywhere. I think the best thing is always to just know them in a little spot and really know it well and really make the best music you can with it and expand from there. And I'm so into that because I spent so many years trying to just, every time I learned something, learn it all over the neck and be super thorough, but I was never thorough with it in any one spot. You know, I was just skimming the surface. So really just, focus on this, really get it down, and then start to expand in different areas. And there certainly is a lot of freedom in knowing the neck well, for sure. But there's also a lot of freedom in just knowing one spot really well too. So you can look at it, different ways. But that's it. So with those, you got all three of them. But let's now listen to an example of putting all three together. This is where it really comes together. Let's give it a listen, and then we'll break down what's going on. Comes together not only because we're using all three of the chord tones, but I'm now not just focused on one, I'm connecting them. And really one of the best ways to be using chord tones is when you go from one chord to the next, play the closest one. You don't have to always, but it's just like the smoothest way. It's how melodies, like vocal melodies especially, often work. They're not leaping all crazy, because when you're singing, it's hard to be singing like crazy leaps. It's easier to sing notes close, that are close to each other. So if you're starting off, focusing on the root here, maybe focus on the third, then a third of E, right? And then maybe you're going right from the third of E to the fifth of B right here. That's just going right down there. And then, you could go back up to the third for E, or you could go down to the octave, the root of E, right? And you start making these little pathways. It's just to choose your own adventure, just going along. But I really recommend just taking it one note at a time, one chord at a time. So start with this, start with the root, and then be like, okay, where can I go next? Well, you could stay right there, right? That would be the fifth now of E. Then the next time, you play the octave again, then you go down to the 3rd, and then maybe again you go down to the 5th of B. Now the root of E. Now maybe the 5th of B again, and then we could be climbing up to so many options. But just keep it simple, keep it around this little area, and see if you can just do that. And then when you feel really comfortable and you can start mapping it out, you can start hearing where things are going. And that's the best part, is you keep doing this, and you may be thinking about it a lot, but eventually you just start, your intuition kicks in, you start hearing where things are going or where they could go, and you can then start choosing, and you just kind of like, it happens in the moment. You're going up, you're going down. But then beyond that, starting to add in notes from, you know, the overall key, or just, you know, some pentatonic things or things like that stuff. But that is, you know, a simple approach of just really getting to know each chord tone for each of these 2 chords. This is a great tune for it because it's just 2 chords, just B and E. It's not like a huge chord progression. It's a great way, either it's 1 or 2 chords, to use that, you know, as kind of a template for growing your understanding and your skills with chord tones. So I hope that helps. I got the backing track right over here, so if you got your guitar, check it out right now, and do what you can, but take it real easy, 1 note at a time, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.